Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we're going to be recapping episode 118 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. Let's get started. We start deep within Rites, and Ludinus has been caught in a force cage, and it's time to talk. Ludinus says that Imogen has her mother back before the end, if it is to be an end. Imogen says that that's not what he said he wanted, and Ludinus says that it's actually the end of an era. He says there's been a lot of potential for what is to come, and they all now wear the experience on their face and have more of a dark wisdom now. He thinks that they might see things closer the way he does, and Chetney moves towards a tunnel that he sees off to the right. Stealth check of 28 to avoid Ludinus seeing, and he snakes his way over there with everyone else still talking to Ludinus. Orm looks at Ludinus' staff, and it looks like a gold and brass two-pronged fork. Ashton thinks that Ludinus slipped up a bit. He says that Ludinus notes that it's the end of an age, but forgot to mention the beginning of a new one. Ludinus tells him to read into his words how he feels, but he has nothing to hide here anymore. Imogen asks her mother in her head how much of what Ludinus says is true. Liliana says that she has no reason to doubt him. The way he goes about things are twisted, but she followed him because she believes in what he says. Ashton says that he believes Ludinus doesn't think he's lying. Lana says he's lying by omission. She asks if his plan to become a vessel had changed or not. He says that plans always change, and then he looks at Liliana. He says that when he learned of the deceit, he had to change his plans. Imogen sarcastically says he was always going to be the best man for the job. Ashton notes that the gods need to be dealt with, just not by him. Lana asks if it would change things if he knew that they had their own plans for taking in Predathos. He asks what they would do with Predathos, and Imogen sarcastically says begin a new age. Fern says to eat everything. Ludinus calls them childish and asks for some honesty. Ashton notes that the only people calling them childish recently were gods, and that he believes that Ludinus has been around for too long. Ludinus agrees, and he has no plans for surviving past this, but knows what he needs to do and what needs to be done, and he will make that sacrifice himself. If they truly align with his goals, then he won't get in the way, but he would like to walk with them in lockstep. He says that her bloodline, her being Imogen, has proven to not be the most honest with him, so how can he believe what they're saying? Imogen says maybe that he shouldn't. Ludinus asks them to tell them their hardships and what drives them to survive until they got here. What do they wish to change? Imogen says that she wants to give people the chance to change their fates. She feels too often what has been set in motion can't be undone. Lana says they didn't finish their conversation, Aor, before he ran away. She asks if he ever thought to ask the gods. Ludinus asks to what end. Lana says that they have answered from time to time. He says that his family followed the lawbearer, and throughout the entire calamity their faith never wavered. He heard the words of the lawbearer will see it through. But his family was collateral damage between the lawbearer and the crawling king that destroyed their city of Ozana. All he got were words of remembrance from a foreign priest. The fallen were forgotten and abandoned when their god left them in ruin, that the god themselves made. His conviction was forged that day and remains to where he is now. It brought him here. He does not care for their words, he only cares for them. He only cares to deal with the gods. Imogen says that he knows that sacrifices needed to be made, and if he would rather have the crawling king free on the world right now. Lana says that he doesn't need to have faith in the gods, but he should have faith in his own mother. He turns to her and says that she knows nothing of his mother, with pure rage in his voice. Ashton asks what he did after that all happened. Ludinus says that he wandered and met other survivors who were looking for direction and comfort in their gods, but they all walked away in silence. Sometimes sacrifices might be made, but the good remember those who made those sacrifices. He remembers them. Imogen asks why the gods walked away, and Ludinus says that they fear their children and their ambition. Imogen asks what if they feared the damage that they brought to the world, and that's why they went behind the divine gate. Ludinus says that some might have, but it's easy for the best to be spoiled. Braius asks if Ludinus got to say goodbye to his family. There's no answer to that question. Fern asks for his parents' names. Ashton says that he didn't even know his parents' names until very recently. They had faith, and they died, and he was left in the middle of nowhere. Ashton can't believe how much he relates to Ludinus, and tells Ludinus to grow up and get over it. Ludinus says what began his journey was just a spark. There were many more stories that made him who he is now. Ludinus asks what Fern would do with the power of the God Eater. And she says that she'd give her friends whatever they wanted and others whatever they wanted whenever she wanted to give it to them. She notes she might not be the best one for that power. Ludinus asks why she's even here then, if she knows she's not the best choice for it. Fern says that she's curious, and if the world is going to burn, she wants to have a front row seat to it, which Ludinus respects. Ludinus asks Laudna what she wants, and she agrees with Imogen in changing fate. Laudna says that things need to change. They know the gods aren't the first ones here. Who speaks for the elementals and the titans now? Who crafted the world? Someone should speak for them. She's here because she walked through the open doors that led her here, and someone has to speak for those who can't speak. Ludinus asks Orym why he's here, and Orym says he's not here to talk, he's here to do. Ludinus has been spilling garbage for years, and there's nothing new about him other than the scale. He can't wait for him to get out of that box. Ludinus appreciates Orym's honesty. Orym says, "Go fuck yourself." Thank you, Orym, for speaking what should be said. Ludinus asks Dorian what he wants, and Dorian says that he was just here for the ride, but now that he's here, he has the opportunity to help steer the ship. Dorian asks if Ludinus thinks that what he's doing is good, and if he thinks he's right. Ludinus says that the things that he's done may not have been good, but he has done it all to do what is right. Dorian says that he got him. The best villains always think that they're right. Ludinus says what makes him a villain is a different perspective. Ludinus asks Braius what he's doing here. Braius says that he too lost faith in the past and is sorry about his family. He says he doesn't know what he wants, but being with those who do helps guide him. He knows Ludinus is alone and has been for a very long time, and he's sorry for that. Braius goes and walks off in a different corner to pray. Dorian sends a message to Imogen saying that the force cage won't last forever, and if he really tried, he could get out of there. Dorian thinks that Ludinus is stalling. Imogen asks where Chetney is, and then we cut to where Chetney is. Chetney is moving through the tunnel that he found, where the glass breaks through the top. He comes out to what seems to be some sort of subchamber that splinters off into another path. He eventually finds a triangular chamber, and he sees a glass wall on the other side. Looking at the glass wall, he sees many layers of what looks to be golden lattice patterns. He looks for tracks on the ground here. Investigation check of 20, he doesn't see anything. He uses his Hunter's Bane to feel if there's anything out of the ordinary, and he only rolls a 6, so he can't really tell much. He does hear an insane amount of buzzing from everywhere, seemingly, coming from everywhere, as he's surrounded by glass. Chetney chooses to continue onward. He looks for traps as he goes, but doesn't find anything, and he rolled really high. He sees there are some raised platforms near the glass wall. Chetney is about 60 feet away from it at this point. He takes out a wooden disc and throws it at the glass wall with the lattice work within. It hits, and there is a gold flash from it, and then the disc lands on the ground. Chetney gets a closer look at this glass wall. He remembers seeing patterns very similar to this when they first threw Ira's telescope at Rites. He sees endless amounts of these glyphs, or the lattice pattern, as he looks into this glass wall. He takes out the Staff of Power and places it on the ground behind him. He then touches the glass wall. He feels a warmth to it. It's hotter than body temperature, but not enough to burn him. He takes out a chisel, and he tries to hit into it, but it almost feels like he's been repelled. Chetney says it's not for him then, and then he goes to run back with the staff to meet the others. Meanwhile, Imogen asks Liliana how Ludinus planned on getting her through the cage. She says that it requires someone with the Mark of Predathos to press through it, the boundaries from this side to temporarily leave them traversable. Ludinus claims that this is the true purpose of the Rites born, to come here and release it, to guide it out. As Ludinus continues to talk, Imogen misty steps toward the tunnel that Chetney went down and begins to run down it. Ludinus sighs and his hair begins to float into the air. His eyes light up and turn white. He then disappears, beating the DC to get out of Force Cage. As Chetney is running back, he casts Detect Magic. He gets a faint magical aura from the glass all around him. He's not sure what kind of magic it is, though. It's very foreign. Chetney then hears footsteps and sees Imogen and the rest of them following her. They tell him that Ludinus left the Force Cage, and they all turn and run back down the tunnel where the lattice glass is. However, before all this happens, Braius went off to pray by himself in the corner. So we're going to go back in time a little bit and deal with what he did while everyone else was talking. Braius sits next to a rock and splatters his paint on the rock, creating a symbol. He reaches out and says that he needs guidance near the end of his mission. He needs to speak with his lord. At this moment, Matt asks everyone else to leave the table. Braius reaches out to Asmodeus. He touches the painted symbol, and he feels a buzzing at the edge of his vision. The symbol changes and moves, and eventually bursts into flames, and Braius almost has tunnel vision on this vision now. He sees an onyx throne, he smells sulfur and burned bone in this dark space. The vision is almost forcing itself in this place that the gods do not belong. He sees the face of his lord, and Braius kneels. Braius apologizes for disturbing him, but he needs his guidance now that there has been many paths laid out before him. He hasn't taken any of these paths, but his absence has made things very muddled. He's met many people who see him as allies. He met Ludinus, who shares a very similar story. Braius needs to know if he is to still follow his path. Asmodeus says that it's good for him to check in, for indeed he stands near a choice. Ludinus is a tragic and deeply misguided individual. Such beings need new direction, but some need to be erased. Asmodeus says that Predathos must not be set free, which is a bit of a different tune than what he used to say. Asmodeus asks who Braius walks with, and Braius says that he walks with him. He was the one who set a guide to Braius at his lowest moment. He was shown that he didn't need the approval of the prime deities, and when he was asked to destroy his first guide, Stanley, he did. Braius says that he found allies in important places, leaders of churches and kingdoms. He found a group who considered him an ally and a friend. He also got the armor from the Platinum Dragon himself. Braius says that he has another boon to help Asmodeus, but needs to know when the time is right. Asmodeus asks what Braius wants, and Braius says that he can't ask for anything. Asmodeus says that he is in every position to ask for something. He's done so much, abandoned by those who didn't see his greatness. He was lost because he was in service to those who cared little. But now he lives in service to himself, and through himself, he lives in service to Asmodeus. Asmodeus says that Braius represents Asmodeus' future, and asks what Braius wants. Braius wishes for family. As his family has discarded him, he wants family and a place to call his own, his home. Maybe he can ask Asmodeus to go to Asmodeus' home. Asmodeus takes Braius' hand and says that he has a home and will always have one. He just needs to protect it. Braius says in order to protect his home, he must kill Ludinus and not let Predathos be free. Asmodeus says that if it can't be stopped from being freed, he must bend it to his will. He knows that he is traveling with a handful of vessels, and they need to be bent to Braius. Braius asks what if they won't listen. Asmodeus says if they won't listen, it needs a vessel to survive, suggesting killing Fern and Imogen. Braius asks if Asmodeus will bring him to his home, and Asmodeus says yes he will, and so much more. Asmodeus says that he's proud of Braius, and Braius says that he likes his friends that he's with and asks how to be strong enough to betray them. Asmodeus says that he's never far from Braius and that when the time is right, they will strike together. Braius says that he looks forward to it. Braius thanks Asmodeus for seeing in him what others wouldn't and for not abandoning him. Asmodeus smiles and says that he's always been special and now it's time to show them why. The flames disappear and Braius' vision comes back and he sees Imogen vanish. The rest of the cast now return to the table. Ludinus sees Braius touch the paint and then sees it burn away. She asks if he was doing art. Braius says yes, but it wasn't like the right canvas that he needed. But then he asks where everyone else is going, and she explains that they have to chase after Ludinus, so they run after them as well. Back to real time, the party is running through the tunnel. The party come out to the open chamber and see the lattice wall. They see Ludinus floating in the air just in front of it. Imogen runs up as close as possible and casts Psychic Lance on him instantly. But there is still the C-Pop limited edition wooden disc near the front of the glass lattice, and Ludinus must make a wisdom saving throw to not be distracted by it. He saves. Fern casts Earthbind on Ludinus. Ludinus also saves his Psychic Lance and takes a bit of damage. I didn't hear the number. I don't think that was ever said. Dorian looks to see if there's some sort of dissipating effect on him or the glass. Inspection check of natural 1, he can't tell. Orym sees Ludinus' staff floating next to him, and Orym runs up as much as he can towards Ludinus. Orym and Chetney are now 60 feet away from Ludinus, 60 feet into the chamber. Dorian, Imogen, Fern, and Ashen are 30 feet into the chamber. Ashen enters his Titan form and sinks into the ground a bit, but can't go all the way down because there is glass beneath the ground here, and he can't go through that. And Braius and Ludna are just outside of the chamber. It's time for a map. The map is sick. Time to roll initiative. Initiative rolls. Orym with a 25, Chetney with a 21, Braius with a 19, Ludna with a 17, Ashen with a 16, Dorian with a 16, Imogen with a 16, and Fern with a 9. First up is Orym. He runs up 45 feet as much as he can. He uses Seedling to then use the Grasping Vine to grab a hold of Ludinus' staff. But Ludinus tries to grab it. Time for a contested roll. Orym wins the roll-off and is now holding Ludinus' staff. He moves 15 feet back as much as he can. Chetney is up. He runs up to protect Orym and takes his werewolf form standing in front of Orym. He then takes out Turmoil. I cannot believe he's still using Turmoil. Like, that thing is so outpaced now, it's not even funny. He then cuts his leg with it, making it spark with lightning, because that's his new Crimson Right, or one of his Crimson Rights. He then casts Shatter on Ludinus with it. Ludinus saves and takes 14 damage. The glass and the rock around him, however, crack a bit from the sound and the impact. Ludinus is up. He turns to the party and says that they could have worked together, and snaps his fingers, casting a 9th level Ravenous Void. A black sphere, almost like a black hole, opens up near Braius and Ludna, who just entered the chamber. Everything is being pulled towards it. Nothing happens yet. We have to wait till the start of their turns to be, pulled in. He then rubs his ring and glyphs form around his skin. Braius is up. Strength save immediately at the top of his turn. 22. He just makes the save. His movement is, however, halved as he is within 100 feet of the sphere. He uses his bonus action to give Ludna inspiration, and he steps up and casts Silence on Ludinus, which works. At first, it was, there was going to be a counter spell, but he was too far out, even with Spell Sniper, because Spell Sniper only works with attacks, not just all spells. Just to give you the rundown. He then walks back 5 feet to be within range of Ludna, so she can have help with saving throws. Because Ludna is up, she takes 11 damage just from starting her turn within the sphere. She needs to make a strength saving throw. She fails with a 17, and she is pulled into the center of the void and is restrained. She takes a bit of damage from this. For some reason, I didn't record that. She can still see, however. It's not like she can't see. She can still see. She takes her form of Dread, and she fires 3 Eldritch Blasts at Ludinus at the back of his neck, where the funnel would go. She misses with an 18. She misses with a 21, but she hits with the last one with a 29. She sees a flash of dark knotted flesh on the base of his skull, and she lands one of her Eldritch Blasts, dealing 7 damage, and also 26 extra necrotic damage from hitting that spot. And smoke begins to drift off of Ludinus from there. He does, however, keep concentration. Ashen is up. Also, something that would be retconned later that he didn't mention right away. Ludinus loses a couple of spell levels from being hit in that spot. Anyway, Ashen is up. Strength save, 18. He is pulled into the center of the void as well and takes 25 damage and is restrained. Ashen rages. He goes full Rainbow Sparkle, as he puts it, and then tries to free Ludna, and with a strength check of 16, it doesn't work. Dorian is up. Strength save, he fails and is pulled into the void and takes 23 damage himself and is restrained. However, he casts Dimension Door near a glass pillar to the right side of the map and pulls Ludna out with him. He then gives Ludna inspiration, and the two of them seem to be outside of the void's pull. Ludinus takes 2 legendary actions, and he can now use Silence Spell from, stealing Liliana's stuff. He then casts Lightning Bolt at 6th level, according to Matt. He lost a couple of spells from being hit in the neck. That's what I mentioned earlier. He hits Orym and Chetney with the lightning bolt, and they both save, so they only take 26 damage each. Imogen is up. She saves a strength save with a natural 20, the literal only way she could have saved. She then moves up her full movement of 15 feet. It's rough terrain, remember. She then misty steps between two rocks to hopefully give herself a base to stand on. She uses Mind Sliver on Ludinus and uses a sorcery point to double its distance to actually hit. He saves. Fern is up. She is pulled into the void as she fails and takes 21 damage. Mister is also up, who is also pulled into the void. She uses her bonus action to use Mister's fiery teleportation, taking Ashton out of the radius, and she is barely within. She is, however, able to move 15 feet, so she leaves the radius, so she won't take damage at the start of her next turn. She then casts Scorching Ray at the dark spot on Ludinus' neck. She casts it at 5th level, so she gets quite a few shots. She misses the first, hits the second with a 28, hits the third, misses the fourth, and hits the last one. 3 of 5 land on the back of his neck. She deals 21 damage from the rays, and 20 necrotic damage. However, he keeps concentration. Ashley rolls a d6 and gets a 2. Ludinus loses 2 levels of spell slots, or 2 levels. 2 spell levels. Orym is up. He is pulled into the void. He immediately drops the staff when he gets in there because, that's a good spot to keep it. Orym then misty steps to a rock, and he uses Seedling to pull himself to a bigger one, hopefully keeping himself within place. Chetney is up. He is not pulled into the void. He walks forward and uses a blood curse of the muddled mind on Ludinus, giving him disadvantage on concentration checks till his next turn. Chetney's next turn, that is. He then runs up to Ludinus with the rest of his movement and swings. He misses at the dark spot with both attacks, however. They're really aiming for this man's neck. Ludinus uses a legendary action to cast a Mind Sliver on Chetney. Chetney fails and takes 15 damage and is now minus a d4 to his next save. Ludinus is up. He focuses on the barrier in front of him, the first layer. The buzzing gets stronger in the room for a second, and there's a white flash very similar to what Imogen used back in Bassaris. Nope. Yeah, it was Bassaris. Back in Bassaris when she leveled a city block. The first layer of the lattice glass becomes translucent, and Ludinus walks up through the barrier. Chetney swings and hits for 22 damage. Not with a 22, he hits for 22 damage. Ludinus turns back and uses telekinetic shove on Chetney, and Chetney is pushed back 10 feet because he had to minus a d4 from his roll, making him fail. Braius is up. He saves from the pull. He moves up 15 feet and casts Moonbeam on Ludinus. Ludinus saves and takes 11 damage and keeps concentration. This guy is so fucking lucky with his concentration, I swear. Braius then inspires Fern. Laudna is up. She's out of the range of the void. She hugs the wall and moves towards Ludinus. She takes out Pate and tells him of Ludinus' dark spot and tells him to land on it. Pate then flies over to Ludinus and gets right into the dark spot's range. She then casts Shocking Grasp through Pate onto his neck. She hits with a 35, thanks to inspiration, and deals 12 damage to him. Ludinus rolls on a concentration check. Uses a legendary action to keep it up because he failed the roll. However, he also takes 26 more damage from the necroticness of it all. Marisha rolls a d6 and rolls a 6. Therefore, Ludinus loses 7 level spells. 7 levels worth of spells. So it can be like 1 level 7 or like 7 level 1s. I don't know how many he has, but Ashton is up. He saves from the pull and he moves 80 feet towards Laudna as he doesn't seem to have any issues with the rough terrain because he's gliding through it. Dorian is up. He mounts Coriolis, his mount Coriolis is pulled into the void, so he's not really useful. Dorian then moves up to see Ludinus. He flies up with his winged boots and casts Lightning Bolt on Ludinus. Ludinus saves and only takes 16 damage, but Ludinus fails the concentration check, but he keeps it up with legendary resistance, the bastard. Imogen is up. She has advantage on strength rolls and fails the roll anyway and is pulled into the middle of the void. She takes 20 damage from being slammed in here and is restrained. She uses a sorcery point to double the distance of a lightning bolt and hits Ludinus, who saves. for 16 damage. Ludinus saves on the concentration check. He then uses a legendary action to cast Rapid Cast Chain Lightning on Dorian, hitting Chetney, Ashton, Laudna, and Pate as well. Pate dies. Chetney, Laudna, and Dorian all fail with it and take 30 damage, and Ashton only takes 15. Ashton sees a flash of energy as Ira has entered the battle, and he wants to watch Ludinus fail. He takes his nightmare form, becoming a shadowy version of himself, almost as if Mr. Negative touched him and he's become Negative Ira. He then leaps up and casts Steel Wind Strike on Ludinus. Landing next to Ludinus, Ira hits with a critical, dealing 72 damage to Ludinus. Ludinus uses his last legendary action to keep the void up. They just need to do one more time to make him fail. Come on. Ludinus uses a legendary action to use Psychic Blast, pushing Ira 30 feet back from him. Fern is up. She is pulled into the void and takes 27 damage again. However, this time Mr. saves. He does, however, move into the void to help Fern. He takes 15 damage entering the space, but he gets close enough to Fern and Imogen where he can teleport them out, poor Coriolis having to be stuck behind. They land next to Braius. Fern moves up 15 feet and casts Scorching Ray at 6th level yet again, aiming for the dark spot. 7 rays. She hits 1 after switching to make sure that she actually lands at least 1. So, she only does 15 damage. He does keep concentration. Orm is up. He is not pulled into the void. He then runs 30 feet up, dashing, and then uses Seedling to get his way up to Ludinus the rest of the way. Chetney is up. He's out of the range of the void, so he doesn't need to make a strength save at all. He then moves up to Ludinus, and he claws for Ludinus. Well, he just goes to attack. He misses the first, but then hits the second for 19. He uses a Brand of Castigation on Ludinus and burns a C-Pop logo into his neck. He then swings again and crits for 28 damage. Ludinus keeps concentration. You son of a bitch. Ludinus is up. He gets rid of the next boundary. He, however, fails on Moonbeam and takes 16 damage, but keeps concentration. He then moves forward. He uses Telekinetic Show on Chetney to push him 10 feet back. Braius is up, and he is not pulled into the void. He then moves the Moonbeam up into Ludinus yet again, and then Braius inspires Imogen, just so she can hopefully make the save. Laudna is up. She moves up and casts Hex on Ludinus and fires Eldritch Blast 3 times at him, and all 3 attacks miss. She then dips into a crack between the rocks to sort of hide. Ashton is up. He is not pulled in, and then they move up to Ludinus. He swings and hits with a 34 on the neck, dealing 37 damage from just the regular swing and 23 damage from the necrotic damage. This finally makes Ludinus drop concentration on the void. Ashton swings again and hits with a 32, and dealing 25 damage. Ludinus uses Rapid Cast legendary action, hitting Dorian again, but Counterspell from Laudna comes. But Counterspell from Ludinus comes. 45 damage to Laudna, Dorian and Ashton, Chetney, and Orm save for 26 damage. Ira also saves. Dorian is up. He flies next to Ludinus, standing outside of the Moonbeam. He takes out his sword and swings. He hits and deals 13 damage, but then uses his Master Flourish, dealing 10 extra damage. Dorian swings for the neck next time, but misses. Ludinus takes 16 damage from the Brand of Castigation that they all forgot about earlier, so they just made sure to add it there. Imogen is up. She runs as far as she can and casts Power Word Stun on Ludinus. Ludinus is below 150 HP and is stunned. Imogen screams enough in his head, and he grabs his head and is now stunned. They have a full round to fuck this man up. Ira is up, and he uses Steel Wind Strike again, aiming for the neck. Ira hits for 37 damage on the regular attack and 37 necrotic damage from hitting that spot. Fern is up. She runs up and uses Mister to use Fiery Teleportation again to move forward. She then casts Scorching Ray at 5th level. She hits 3 shots to the body and 1 to the neck, dealing 27 fire damage total and 33 necrotic damage. Ludinus loses 7 more spells. Or 7 level spells. Orm is up. He steps back and pulls Ludinus away from the walls, away from the boundaries, using Seedling. Orym then goes around to block his path and stands behind him. Orym swings for the neck, missing the first strike, but critting the second strike, and landing the last one. The crit deals 52 damage. Orym slashes at his neck. He then spins around to Ludinus' front and stabs him through the chin. Orym says, "So much pride, so much plotting," and then he watches the life leave Ludinus' face. Ludinus smiles, and as he dies, he says, "Finish what must be done, please." And his eyes drift, his arms fall limp, and he hits the ground. The lightning marks on his body withdraw. Ira then goes over to him and picks up Ludinus' head and laughs. He says he needed that. The party are in shock. Chetney and Fern loot him instantly. They don't find much. They find the potion that he was about to drink. That's about it. Ashen then guards the boundary and watches Ira, who is very happy at this moment. Imogen hugs Orym, and Orym asks what they do now. She says that she doesn't know, but he finally did it. Orym says they did it. Orym looks at the boundary. The first 2 layers are now transparent and faint, and there are still more layers behind it. Orym uses second wind to heal. Orym puts his back up to the barrier. Braius asks if they keep going or if the job is done. Imogen says yes, they keep going. They decide it's best to use the refresher ball they got a couple episodes ago to get a short rest effectively. Orym says that he's dead. Who else is coming? They might as well leave. It's over. Laudna asks where Liliana is. Imogen asks her mother in her mind if she's okay. Liliana says yes and asks how they are all doing. Imogen informs her mother that Ludinus is dead. Orym asks what if they just cave this place in and go away. They leave it behind. It's over. Fern says Ludinus is dead. That's probably a good idea, but Braius asks what if he made copies of himself. The party think that he might have done this. Imogen asks what they think they should do, and Ashen doesn't want to wait as he'll lose his Titan form. He wants to keep going. The party agree, except for Orym. He asks what the bother is even for. It's over. They've won. Lana doesn't want to rest on this victory. Ludinus has been planning this for centuries. He has contingency plans. There's almost no way that he doesn't. Braius says if he didn't make copies, they'd be releasing Predathos on a whim. Fern thinks that they should at least take a peek at it, and thinks that Imogen and herself can walk through the barriers. Ashen thinks that this is the beginning of a new age, and that belongs to the children. He doesn't want to be lorded over anymore. They can change things. Fern asks Chetney to use grim psychometry on the physical layers that still remain of the last glass. He does so, and he sees civilizations collapsing. He feels the fear of the divine. He feels something grand squeezing to this one singular point, and he feels a pulse, that pulse for the first time, and the inviting feeling. Braius thinks that they shouldn't mess with it. Imogen says the Archheart and the Matron asked them to do this, but Braius notes that would be ignoring the request of every other god who doesn't want to be pushed out. Which is a good point. Imogen asks why they can't do something about Predathos and to keep it from feasting. Lana says that they don't know if it will or if it won't. Lana asks how they're going to keep this place safe now that it's open. Others can come. Others will come. Jenny says if a vessel can control it, it should be one of them. Fern wants to touch the barrier, but Imogen wants to use the refresher first, which is a good idea. Ira is just watching them. Dorian gets Coriolis to give Imogen the Ludinus' staff. They ask Ira to see what it is, and he says that it's just a delicious artifact, and he is not doing anything to tell them what it is, the bastard. They wanted him to identify it, but he didn't. They ask Ira what he would do right now, and he says that he was just curious what they'll do. He got what he came for, which is the death of Ludinus Deleth. He's comfortable just watching from the sidelines at this point. Fern then casts Identify on the staff, but it rejects the spell, which concerns the fuck out of the party. Orym is just listening and watching now because he believes that this is over and doesn't need to keep going. However, he does see the logic and understands what they're trying to say. They suddenly smell sulfur, and Ludinus' body is gone. It dissolved. Ira is also gone. They decide to use the refresher on themselves. They feel like they're pulled through a portal, but then appear at the same place, and they are now refreshed and healed. Chetney makes an Arcana check to see if what happened to Ludinus' body was some sort of fiendish or demonic thing, but it's not. It seems to be definitely self-destruction. They heal up, and they get some spell slots back. Fern makes an Arcana check on the staff. She rolls a 10. She can't really tell what it is. The staff is definitely of elven made, maybe Fae. Ludinus uses Eyes of the Runekeeper on it. Arcana check 24. She sees that some of the runes are now dull after the identify, meaning that they can likely try to identify again as the protection wards are gone. So, Fern does it again. It is the Staff of Soulbind Relay, and it has been expended. The fucking bastard. Seems Ludinus is still alive somewhere. Bitch. Fuck you, Ludinus. Chenny wants to suck up the staff using the harness, but they were thinking about using Ludinus' harness, but it's nowhere to be seen. They put the staff away out of fear of needing the harness for later, for using it on Predathos. The party know that Ludinus didn't have it on him when he was trying to enter the hollowed cage, however, so maybe it's not needed. They think they may need a bag of holding, or there may be a bag of holding where Liliana is in the other room. Chenny runs back to check the tunnel, but there is no bag, so he runs back to the others. Imogen puts her hands on the barrier, and she lets her being expand, and she feels Predathos on the other side, seemingly meet her hands and taking it. Suddenly, she steps through the barrier. It's now gone and transparent. She does it to the next one the same way, feeling the same thing. The party follow behind her as she goes. The final barrier drops, and she feels the tether and the hand-holding still remaining. Fern and Imogen feel like they belong here. It's like they're meant to be here, but they don't know why. Whatever is pulling them feels excited. They walk into the widening core, and they see the glass spikes and pillars. The rock here has been twisted, and there are structures that seem to have been changed. Temples and reliefs melted and unfinished. In the center is a curved spire, kind of like an explosion. A crystal and a red stone womb. There's a soft glowing teal white light in here. It's unfocused. It's an unfocused mode of light. Kind of like the beings from Tengar. Imogen reaches out her mind to it and asks what it is. The light asks if she's there. It's childlike, innocent, sad, and almost half awake. The rest of the party hear this light's voice as well. The tether between Imogen and Fern is brighter than ever. The rest of the party also have a tether behind them leading towards the others, but there's another tether that leads from Imogen and Fern to the light itself. That now looks like a very small child. The light says you came, and it asks if it's free to go and to wake up. Imogen says a lot of people are scared of it. The light says that it wants to wake up. Imogen asks if the light talked to Ludinus. The light says that it did, and that he was the first one to reach it. He came to the light in its dreams and promised to free it. Now, the party is here. Orm asks if the light can hear Ludinus still. The light says it can't, it can only hear its children. Which means he's no longer its child, because he's no longer partly fucking exultant. Fern asks how the light got here, and the party get flashes in their mind of heated rock, volcanic destruction, seas boiling, mountains falling, and the gods encircling and titans pouncing, being lost into darkness alone. The party understand this light is a shadow of its true self, and there's no knowing truly how expansive this being could be. The light asks if they can go now. Ashen asks where they came from. The light doesn't know. The party sees flashes of stars, celestial towers of possibility, black clouds of nothing given shape and thought. Almost like Tengar. I swear to God, this thing is like one of the gods. And a need to feed. That's all they feel. Only flashes of clear memory. Imogen says that they want to help, but they're worried that the light will hurt people. The light says that it doesn't understand. Insight check from Orm, and he gets a whisper. Dorian focuses on the tether for a second between himself and his friends. It's a gold tether, not a red one, like the one between Imogen and Fern. Braius says that he wants to help and asks if they can't, what the light will do. The light says that they will make more of their kin, and the room shakes and they all feel almost like the root is shifting itself. The crystals all begin to brighten. They're in the middle of a flare. They close their eyes, but to no effect. They still see the blinding light. And eventually it ends. Fern and Imogen get 24 temporary hit points. Fern asks what they're doing, and they say that they're making more to find them. More root is born to find the light. Imogen says that they're here, and they ask if they can leave again. Imogen feels the pull, like she wants to step forward and embrace the light. It's a natural and primal feeling, but also alien at the same time. The light steps closer. Lana looks at the entrance and sees that nothing is there, maybe worried that someone else will come behind them. Chetney steps towards the light and holds his hand up, but he sees that the light steps towards Fern and Imogen and doesn't seem to notice Chetney. Chetney doesn't block the light, but Orm steps between his friends and the light. He sees it's kind of humanoid but has a Ryloran head. They see that the Rylorans are clearly physical children born in the image of Predathos. The light steps to the side and tries to sort of mimic the party as it walks. Orm tells it to wait, and he says that he's afraid of the trouble of them leaving here. He asks if it would leave and go somewhere else. They say that it will, but it must eat first. Imogen says that they can get them food. Fern asks what it's hungry for. Suddenly there's flashes of memories. Temples and gods flash before the party. There's a burning hunger, and there's no way that they can truly express this kind of hunger. It's almost foreign to them. The light smiles through its sharpened teeth. Braius says that some of them are friends of the gods and would like them to spare it, or like it to spare them. The light says that it needs to eat. Lana runs her fingers along the Raven Queen's mask. It's very cold. Dorian cuts his finger and takes the blood and touches it to the thread that is tethered between them all. He sees that this thread is very similar to the ones that the matron had before, these gold tethers. Braius asks if the light is alone, and it says that it's not alone anymore. Braius wonders if the gods that it killed her here, maybe the light got their power somehow. Ashen asks if it's a vacuum, if it's truly nothing. The light tries to walk around Orm. Orm walks with it. Chetney blocks its path. Chetney says to slow down. The light asks if they can go. Imogen asks what it would have them do, and it says wake me and holds its hand out towards Imogen. Chetney tries to block it and is thrown off his feet and slams into the side of the room, taking 8 damage for his efforts. Fern says that not to do that, that's one of their friends. It doesn't care. Imogen takes Fern's hand and it asks if they can leave again. They can both feel the tether. Do they allow it to happen, or do they resist? Holding Fern's hand, Imogen touches the light. The light shoots forward and dissipates. Imogen feels a churning like a storm inside of her. It's overwhelming. The room starts to twist and bend in her eyes. Imogen rises into the air and the crystals begin to crack and shift. Her skin is now a deep red crimson and her body begins to extend. Predathos begins to take over her. Imogen tries to resist, wisdom save 12. Fern tries to keep her connection with Imogen strong so Imogen remembers who she is and who the party are. Wisdom save from Fern. The crystal shards begin to affix themselves to Imogen. Fern rolled a 28. For a brief moment, Imogen falls to shadow, and she sees a red light, and the red light is Fern. She yells, Imogen, and the session ends here. And there you have it, episode 118 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. Oh boy, what a episode. First of all, I think this episode should put aside, Ludinus being weak, because not only did one spell basically fuck the party for 2 rounds, it might have almost been 3 rounds completely, but not only did that happen, but he also has contingencies. It seems he's likely still alive somewhere, which is a little annoying because this entire campaign he's like, I don't care if I die, I don't care if I die, and then guess what? I care if I die, so I've made clones. Fuck you, Ludinus. Fuck you, asshole. Anyway, this was a fantastic episode. The fight was awesome. I'm glad they really didn't talk to him all that much. They did kind of talk to him and sort of gave him their reasonings for still being there, which I liked. It was sort of like a reverse from what would normally happen with how people are talking to a villain, why the villain's there. We know why Ludinus is there. So us getting a tiny bit more information about how his family sort of died, but then it was mostly the party sort of explaining to Ludinus why they're there, which I very much enjoyed. I thought it was a very much different conversation than what they would normally have with a villain, and I enjoyed the conversation. Not to mention, I like that Braius is seemingly still on the bad path. And to me, while this would normally feel like the end of the campaign, I feel like there's still more to do after the next episode. So I feel like 119 is not going to be it, but 120 might be the last episode, because there's so much to do still. There's so much to wrap up. Whether or not Braius is going to betray them or not, whether or not, like, you know, Prodothos is actually, like, it seems that it's going to be in Imogen, but whether or not the party are able to defeat her in some way or fashion, who knows? And what's going to happen with the gods, what's going to happen with Exandria. There's too much to be done in one episode. Even if it's 7 hours long, I still think there's too much to be done. So I get the feeling 119, 120, and that'll be the end. But who knows? I'm very curious as how this is going to go. This was an awesome episode. The fight was dope. The fucking Mote of Light, it's from Tanalor. Or, sorry, not Tanalor. It's from Tengar, right? Like, this thing has to be from Tengar, where the gods came from. It was one of the ones that got, like, sucked up first. It has to be. Because there's just no reasonable explanation as to what the fuck this thing is outside of that. It has to be. I think the theory that one of the ones that got sucked up into, like, the darkness, it might even be the darkness from Tengar, like when the darkness first appeared, this thing might be that, which is cool. But I think the running theory of one of the Motes of Light who touched the darkness first became the beacon, became the Luxon, is a great idea. And it, like, sort of appeared way before everyone else because it left. Because the space of, like, Tengar is, like, some sort of amorphous time doesn't matter thing. And once they left it, you know, that's the issue. They left it, so now they feel time. Whereas that thing left, like, the first Mote of Light left way before everyone else did. So, maybe. But I don't know. I like the idea that this thing is either the darkness from Tengar, or this thing is, like, one of the lights that got corrupted by the darkness. And that's what it is now. It hungers for its brethren, sort of deal. And I'm excited to learn more. I hope we learn more. Especially with Imogen sort of being absorbed or turned into the villain. What is Laura going to do? Is it going to be like a situation where Opal, like the Opal situation where she gets to control herself, but also if she doesn't do what Matt wants her to do, like, Matt will take over for a little bit. Kind of curious how that'll go. So that's cool. I'm curious how that'll go. So that's it for the, like, recap of my thoughts and everything. There are a couple things that, like, just a few, how do I put this? A few things that I want to say. First of all, I'm going to be doing the next stream on Sunday. Because, you know, my next stream will be on Sunday. It'll probably start closer to, like, 3 p.m. this time around instead of me starting at, like, 1. So it'll be at, like, 3 p.m. for the next stream. It'll be continuing the Baldur's Gate Honor Mode run that we're doing. So if you were watching that, that's going to keep going. Also, I know there was some people who wanted to see, like, my reactions to these fights. I don't think that's going to happen for a couple of reasons. I first of all don't think reactions are that fun without a camera, and I don't have a camera. So, like, you're just going to hear me, like, my voice react to things. And when things get tense, I get quiet. That's something I've learned about myself going back over and, like, listening to my reactions, like the recordings to my reactions. So that video likely isn't going to happen, which sucks. It would have been a metric fuck ton of effort, and I wouldn't know if it would even be, like, that good. So that's why that video is not going to happen. But with all that being said, I have to go shovel my driveway because we had a fucking massive snowstorm last night. And I will see you guys on Tuesday for whatever video I make next. Peace.